Hi guys, I'm back with episode 3 of season 3 of AliTalksTech. We are still at Novacom Summit down in Diani. So as I can tell you, apart from sand, and beach, we're also getting some work done. Today, I am with Alice Kariuki. Alice is Director Public Policy at Airtel Africa. She covers the whole of the African continent. I'm going to be talking to Alice about my second lab, which is public policy, and how that is really affecting the telco ecosystem across Africa. Alice, if you may not know, one of the hats I wear is chair of the board of trustees of the Kenya ICT Action Network. I'm sure you know �𝐃𝐄𝐑.
Right.
Yes, so I chair 𝐃𝐃𝐑.
Okay, fantastic.
So Alice, a little bit about yourself and then tell us about your role in public policy at Airtel Africa. Over to you.
All right. As he has said, my name is Alice Kariuki. I am Director for Public Policy at Airtel Africa. I'm part of a larger team, but I'm in charge of public policy. Public policy covers licensing, covers tax, covers competition issues, covers compliance. So it covers a whole host of things. At Airtel Africa PLC, we run mainly two businesses that are publicly and well known, and largely it's the mobile telecommunication service business, and also the mobile financial services business. So we have two arms of that we run. And yes, I tend to oversee public policy across those two spectrums.
So, before we started this conversation, we had a small little tete-a-tete and briefing. And I noticed you mentioned financial services. And I know in 2024, we don't really think about how telcos have really come to dominate financial services, not just in Kenya, across Africa. You have Airtel Money, you have MTN Momo, you have, of course, M-Pesa. Talk to us about that, how that has come to be, and how a telco executive is navigating multiple policymakers and regulators. How's your day like? A day in the life of Alice.
All right, that's the harder question to answer. But just talking about let me address first the issue of dominance.
Yeah.
It's easy to see the size of the businesses, but not to see the value that they bring to countries.
100%.
All right. So banking penetration, for example, was very, very low within Africa. All right. The percentage of the unbanked was in the regions of 70% at the time that we started. So you will 100%. Find that everybody that's banked is in the cities, everybody else is unbanked. What we have done as financial service providers is actually take the service, is enable rural and rich people. As long as our network can reach to those places, then those people can find connectivity. And when they find connectivity, they can find financial services. They can begin to trade. They can begin to receive money. And most of the rural population, for example, just do P2P transactions. And that changes their lives. They're able to receive money from diaspora, from the cities, and that improves the quality of life. So I think let's not look at the size of the business, look at the value that those businesses provide
100%.
To the economy of the country and to the lives of individuals across Africa. And nobody else was willing to go into that space. The banks were not willing to go into that
That's
space.
what we forget.
Yeah.
That's actually what we forget today. For me, also as a Fintech executive.
All right. You wear many hats.
I wear many hats. What is super important and interesting to appreciate is the role that telcos, that 13, 14 years ago, nobody would have thought they would get into financial services. To fast forward to today, where in many parts of this country and increasingly many parts of Africa, without mobile money, there's no financial services.
Correct.
And how you navigate from communication authorities across Africa to central banks to now, because you are starting to layer on top of mobile money products that talk about investment to capital markets authorities. Your life is interesting. I honestly, I must just say your life is interesting. And I was just thinking to myself, like, Alice, can you let me be a fly on the wall in your office one day?
All right. So wearing these two hats, or three, and dealing with three regulators. So far, just two regulators. We haven't become sophisticated enough to deal with the third, but we appreciate what the third entails. Is a factor of history.
Mm-hmm.
So
expound on that.
So I was there before. I was at the Airtel Africa PLC group of companies. I was working for Airtel Kenya. And Airtel Kenya wanted to branch into mobile financial services.
Correct.
So how do you grow another branch of business? You use the same people that you have because the skills are the same, and you use them to begin to have conversations with the central bank in Kenya.
Correct.
Right? Now, fortunately, Kenya happens to be the birthplace of mobile financial services. And so there were key and important learnings that I got from those engagements with the central bank at that particular time.
Hands down.
And what we have then done is try to replicate those learnings across the markets. I will be the first one to say that it's not possible to do both. And even within the Airtel structure, I did allude that we do have a vertical who is responsible specifically for mobile financial services. But for the longest time, I have overseen. So I'm not the one going to the central bank. I'm overseeing.
You have somebody with domain expertise.
Is financial services.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
I get you. So how has that journey been? I mean, congratulations first from just Airtel Kenya
to thank you. Thank you.
To a Pan-African role.
Yeah.
How's that journey been?
Well, the journey it's been difficult. I always say, everybody says you're lucky. And yes, there is some element of luck, some element of extreme good fortune.
I always say that luck finds the prepared.
Or the hardworking. So yeah. So the principle I live by is just do what you're supposed to do. Just do what you're told to do. So there is an investor. He's ready to offer a certain service. He needs collaboration to do it. He needs collaboration with government. Can I support him to accomplish that goal? So that's my underlying fundamental principle. Just do what you're required to do. Just do what you're told, and that has propelled me through Airtel. So just work, and more work. So you asked about a day in my life. So what can I say? So I start early. I do from 5 o'clock to
That's 5
a.m. Yeah, I'm an early riser, 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. I take care of myself. Yeah. All right. So I'll go to the gym, I'll meditate and pray, I'll read the scriptures, then I'll be ready to face the world.
Okay.
All right. Then I'll go to work, maybe 8 or 9. Or no, I'll see my children off. I have family.
Yeah.
So I'll see off my children.
School.
Off to school, the husband's off, and then I prepare myself and go to work. I have long days. I can have long days, but increasingly I'm learning to know that by 7 p.m. I need to shut down the laptop, whether it's done or not, unless there's a crisis. Now, in a big business like ours, there's always something. There's always a crisis. But I've, over time, as I've said, I've worked in Airtel for 24 years. I've learned to I can tell what a real crisis is and what's not a real crisis, because they are, they are human-made crises, and then they're real crises. When we are about to lose a license or when we're going to be shut down, those are real crises, and then we make the sacrifice. Yeah.
So a friend of mine once told me, Ali, there's work-life balance and there's work-life integration.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that?
I'm not sure that there is work-life balance, because life is never in balance. Is my personal view.
Okay.
I think what someone wise said to us, and this was a pastor at Nairobi Chapel where I went many years.
Okay.
For many years, he said life is a continuum. It's like a line.
Okay.
All right? And then you have a fulcrum point. And so you move the fulcrum according to the pressure that's on either side.
Like that.
So if your child is sick, you let the work suffer. If your husband is sick, you let the work suffer.
Yes.
If on the other side everything is fine at home, then you move the fulcrum and focus on so there's really you try to keep it in balance, but they're always competing interests, and that skill of knowing where to push the fulcrum comes with time, and sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes you burn your children, sometimes you burn the job, so it's so that's where the element of luck.
I like that insight.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Now, last evening and today morning, today afternoon, we've had quite interesting conversations, and some of them were about connectivity or lack thereof in many parts of Africa. Some were about cost, some were about infrastructure, and the play between public and private infrastructure. I just had a conversation with somebody from Mawingu, and we were talking about North Peak and the role of government and costs. You and I talked about universal service funds and how that should complement. I love the fact that you have a view across Africa.
Yes, I do. That makes it possible, yes.
Fantastic. So give us some insights on how the USF, and they have different names in different countries,
correct,
but the same.
The principle is
the same. So first, maybe articulate that for my audiences.
Right.
Some of them may not really understand the ecosystem and how that has helped move the needle towards more and better connectivity across the continent.
All right, thank you. So as a starting point, I would like to say that telecoms exist to make money. So their motive
50%.
is, So their motive is capitalistic, to make money. The government sees that and realizes that these sharks, let me call us sharks for that, for these purposes, will just focus on those areas where they can make the most money.
100%.
All right? And yet the government has an obligation. I need to also say that telco services are a utility. They're like Kenya Power. We're like Kenya Power, only we're in private hands. Or we are so central to the lives of individuals, yet we're in the hands of private entities.
Correct.
So the government then...
Private capital, which requires a return.
Which requires a return. And because we are driven by that motive of return, we might forget to serve
the public good.
Yeah, we might forget to do the public good, or not do it to the scale that would satisfy government or help government meet objectives. So the government has two tools to do that. One is that in our licenses, they give us obligations. So they tell you must build X number of sites in places that we typically would not go on our own. Okay. All right? Because there is
that's part of your license requirement.
It's put in the license. I
like that.
Yeah. So that's one.
And that's policy intervention.
Yes, and that's a universal service obligation on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second way that the governments deal with it is that they collect a universal service fund. All right? So
How much is that?
It varies from country to country.
In percentage
It's
terms.
0.5%. I think the least I know is 0.5% of
Okay.
your gross revenues,
Okay.
of your annual gross revenues. So
Gross.
annual revenues. So
Not
net,
profit.
not net, not profit, not
Gross.
yes.
Okay.
So it then is supposed to meet.
And the highest? The
I
lowest?
think the highest I've seen is 2%.
2%.
Yeah, I think in some of the Franco markets it would be 2%.
Mhm.
So quite a spectrum. So so you give these funds to the government, and the purpose of the government is then to create a scheme that will build sites and provide telecom infrastructure in those places that are unserved or underserved.
Or basically not commercially viable.
Not commercially viable. So that is the focus. So they collect this money, and it tends to be a lot of money. Now, two problems happen. Governments can tend to not be committed to their own objectives. So some governments collect the money and never do anything with it, and it's fact. It can be verified. And then some countries. My favorite country when it comes to the use of the Universal Service Fund is Rwanda.
Oh, wow.
So a very small country, but they take the funds. All right, they have no business. The government realizes it has no business building towers.
Mm-hmm.
And then it tells telcos, all right, with your money, I will incentivize you to go and build in places you would not normally build.
Oh, wow.
All right?
So, wait a minute. Do they collect a USF?
They collect the USF.
Okay.
So the
But
USF,
also incentivize.
they also incentivize you.
Oh, wow.
Because even if you meet my capital expenditure, there is still an operational cost, which is still high.
It's still high.
It's still high. So I still have to fuel the site,
Correct.
and I have it's long distances, and it's recurrent.
Yes.
And remember, this site is not making me any money. So the government then meets that need for a period of time. So you find that the government of Rwanda will tell you, I will subsidize your OPEX cost by X%. Or even in full.
The government of Rwanda does that.
The government of Rwanda does that. That's why I said it's my favorite country when it comes to the Universal Service Fund. So two things happen. Is one, very good use of the USF fund. And then on top of that, they meet the operators' operational costs for 2 years. And by that time, what happens is that initially it was a struggling site, and then it begins to kick. So it then becomes a viable, even a marginally viable site. Wow. So this is my best example. As I said, the worst example, and I won't name countries, would be that they collect the money, don't account for it, and do nothing. Oh, wow. Yeah. So as telcos, this is a pet peeve. We don't like, of course, that we contribute to the USF because this was money that we could return to our shareholders. But we can tolerate it if it serves the sectors in which we work, because you can see that it then also brings a return back to us.
All right.
What's painful is when we are asked to finance health and other things that government is supposed to do.
Because
it's not our core business. And
you're not there for public good.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just be honest about it.
Correct.
Okay.
So even though I said Rwanda is good for on how they use the funds for the USF, they also charge a fee charge a percentage for health and...
Of course.
Yeah.
That's what governments do.
Yeah, that's what governments do. But yeah.
Thank you so much for that brief. I know we are pressed for time.
All right.
So I would like to wrap it up.
All right.
And just let you closing remarks.
My closing remarks is that Africa remains a beautiful continent, a place I am proud to be associated with. Unfortunately, a place with a lot of poor people.
Which shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. And I sometimes, try to put on the government hat and say what can be done. And I think the greatest goals for our government is try and alleviate poverty. And if you alleviate poverty, then everything else will begin to fall in place. Because if people have some income, then services will come to them. No doubt. So if we ask governments to subsidize everything, And then also subsidies sometimes don't help people. They make them more entrenched in their poverty.
Completely.
So I think, so I'm just saying that there is a need for novel and clever solutions for Africa that come from us, not come from outside, that come from us. And my challenge to governments with whom I work out the people at the end of the line.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Alice, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time and know how busy you are. So asante sana.
My pleasure.
Please enjoy the
facilities at Swahili Beach.
Even as we put in some work.
All right.
Asante
Thank you.
sana.
Thank you so much. All right. Take care.
There.